I stood there in the pouring rain, my key frozen halfway to the lock. It didn't fit. Actually, it didn't even go in. Someone had changed the locks. My own mother had changed the locks to the house I grew up in, the house where I took my first steps, where I celebrated every birthday, where my father had promised me I'd always have a home. But he was gone now, and apparently, so was my home. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. For the past 6 years, I'd been living in a small apartment downtown, building my career as a graphic designer. My relationship with my mom had always been complicated. She was controlling, critical, always comparing me to other people's daughters. But she was still my mom. When Dad passed away 2 years ago, everything changed. He'd been the glue holding our family together, the peacemaker, the one who'd calm Mom down when she went on her rants about how I should have been a doctor or a lawyer instead of wasting my time with art. After his funeral, Mom became distant, cold even. She stopped returning my calls as often. Our weekly dinners became monthly, then barely at all. I thought she was grieving. I thought she needed space. I gave it to her. That was my first mistake. The house, our family home, had been in my parents' names jointly. Dad had told me years ago that when the time came, he wanted me to have it. Not to sell it, but to keep it in the family. He'd made me promise I'd take care of Mom and make sure she was okay. And I did. I called. I checked in. I sent money when she said she needed help with repairs. But I never imagined what she was planning behind my back. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I decided to surprise her with a visit. I'd just landed a huge client, and I wanted to share the good news. I wanted to see her smile, maybe even hear her say she was proud of me for once. I drove across town, picking up her favorite flowers on the way. Lavender roses, the ones Dad used to buy her every anniversary. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. The garden was neat, the porch light was on. But when I reached the front door and tried my key, nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. My heart started racing. Maybe I grabbed the wrong key? I checked. No, this was definitely the right one. The brass key with the little scratch on the side from when I dropped it in the parking lot 5 years ago. I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Finally, I heard footsteps. The door opened, but only a crack. A chain lock I'd never seen before held it in place. My mother's face appeared in the gap, and the look she gave me, I'll never forget it. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't confusion. It was cold. Calculated. Like she'd been expecting this moment. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" Her voice was flat. No warmth. No recognition of the fact that I was her daughter, standing in the rain with flowers in my hand like an idiot. I came to see you. My key doesn't work. Did you change the locks?" She didn't blink. "Yes." Just yes. No explanation. No apology. "Why? Mom, what's going on?" She sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "Sarah, this is my house now. I don't need you showing up unannounced whenever you feel like it. You have your own place." "You should have called first." "Her house? Her house? But Mom, this is our family home. I grew up here. Dad wanted—"
Your father is dead." The words came out sharp, cutting through the rain like a blade. "And this house is mine. I'm the one who lives here. I'm the one who maintained it. You moved out years ago. You don't get to just walk in whenever you want anymore." I felt like I'd been slapped. "I wasn't trying to just walk in. I was trying to visit you. You're my mother. And you need to respect my boundaries. I'll call you when I'm ready to see you." Then she closed the door, right in my face. The flowers slipped from my hand and scattered across the wet porch. I stood there for I don't know how long, water soaking through my jacket, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't grief. This wasn't Mom needing space. This was something else entirely. Something was very, very wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the conversation over and over, trying to make sense of it. The coldness in her eyes, the way she called it her house, not our house, the locks, the chain. It was like she was keeping me out on purpose. The next morning, I called her. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I tried again the next day, and the day after that. Every call went to voicemail. Every text turned blue with no response. It was like I didn't exist anymore. A week later, my uncle, Dad's younger brother, called me out of nowhere. Uncle Mike and I had always been close. He was the cool uncle who'd sneak me candy when Mom wasn't looking and teach me card tricks at family gatherings. "Sarah, we need to talk. Can you meet me for coffee?" The tone in his voice made my stomach drop. This wasn't a casual catch-up call. We met at a small cafe near his office. He looked tired, older somehow. When he sat down across from me, he didn't waste time with small talk. "I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." I braced myself. "What is it?" "It's about your mother, and the house." He paused, rubbing his temples. "Sarah, she's trying to sell it." The world tilted. "What? She can't do that. Dad wanted me to have it. He told me—" "I know what your dad wanted. But here's the thing. The house was in both their names. When your dad passed, his half automatically transferred to your mom through the joint tenancy clause. Legally, she owns the whole thing now." I felt sick. "But Dad told me. He promised—" "I know, kiddo. He told me too. He always said he'd make sure you were taken care of, but your mom convinced him not to put anything in writing. She said it would be too complicated, too expensive to set up a trust. She promised him she'd honor his wishes. And now she's breaking that promise." Uncle Mike nodded grimly. "I saw the listing yesterday. She's put it on the market for $800,000. It's already getting interest." $800,000. The house Dad built with his own hands. The house where he planted a tree the day I was born. The house that held every memory of him. And she was selling it without even telling me. "There's more," Uncle Mike continued, his voice dropping lower. "I did some digging. She's been dating someone. Some guy named Richard she met at her book club 6 months ago. From what I've heard, he's been pushing her to sell, telling her she deserves to live her life, travel, enjoy her money." I couldn't breathe. 6 months. She'd been planning this for 6 months while ignoring my calls and shutting me out. "She changed the locks to keep me away," I whispered. "She knew I'd try to stop her." "Probably. And Sarah, I hate to say this, but there's a chance she's going to succeed. Without anything in writing from your dad, you don't have a legal claim to the house itself." The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I hadn't touched it.
My hands were shaking too much to hold the cup. "What can I do?" Uncle Mike leaned forward, his expression serious. "You need a lawyer. A good one. There might be a way to challenge this, but you have to act fast. Once that house sells, it's over." I left that cafe feeling like my entire world had crumbled. My mother, the woman who raised me, who I'd spent my whole life trying to please, had betrayed me. She'd looked me in the eye and lied. She'd cut me out of my own inheritance, broken my father's dying wishes, and was about to erase every trace of him from existence. All for a man she'd known for 6 months. But she'd made one critical mistake. One thing she didn't know about me. One thing Dad had always told me. "Sarah, you're tougher than you think. When life knocks you down, you get back up swinging." So that's exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and expensive leather. Attorney Jennifer Walsh had come highly recommended, sharp, ruthless, and specialized in family estate disputes. Uncle Mike had connected us, and within 2 days I was sitting across from her, laying out everything. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on her yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Your mother made several mistakes," she said finally. "Big ones." Hope flickered in my chest. "What do you mean?" "First, let's talk about what you do have. Your father may not have put his wishes in writing formally, but did he ever mention them to anyone else? Letters, emails, text messages?" I thought hard. "He used to text me sometimes. Just casual stuff, but yes. He'd say things like, 'This will all be yours someday,' or, 'Don't worry, I'm making sure you're taken care of.'" Jennifer's eyes lit up. "Do you still have those texts?" "I think so. I never delete anything from him." "Good. Find every single message where he mentions the house, your inheritance, or his intentions for the property. That establishes his wishes, even if they weren't formalized." She flipped through her notes. "Second, you said you've been sending your mother money for house repairs. Do you have records of that?" "Bank transfers, probably 6 or 7 over the past 2 years, a few $1,000s total." "Excellent. That establishes your financial interest in maintaining the property. You weren't just a daughter who moved out. You were actively contributing to the home's upkeep with the expectation that you'd eventually inherit it." My heart was racing now. "Is that enough?" "Not quite, but here's where it gets interesting." Jennifer leaned forward. "You mentioned your father built parts of the house himself. Did he do that before or after they got married?" "Before. Way before. He bought the land when he was 25, built most of the structure himself over 2 years, then met my mom and married her when he was 30. She moved in after the wedding." Jennifer smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted weakness in her prey. That changes everything. In this state, property acquired before marriage can maintain its separate property character, especially if he built it with his own labor, and if he made improvements or paid the mortgage primarily from his separate income rather than joint marital funds, we have an argument that he never intended for it to be fully community property. But they added her name to the deed? That's true, but context matters. When did they add her name? I searched my memory. I think 5 years into their marriage? Mom kept pressuring him about it. She said it wasn't fair that she lived in a house she had no claim to. Dad finally gave in. Gave in.
That's important phrasing. It suggests coercion, not willing gift. Jennifer was writing furiously now. Here's what we're going to argue. Your father added your mother to the deed under pressure, but he never intended for her to have the right to sell the property without honoring his wishes for your inheritance. His texts to you demonstrate that. Your financial contributions demonstrate your reasonable expectation of inheritance. And the fact that she changed the locks and shut you out immediately before listing shows consciousness of guilt. She knew what she was doing was wrong. Can we stop the sale? We can try. I'll file an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order on the sale, citing your equitable interest in the property. It won't be easy. Your mother does legally own the house. But if we can show the judge that there's a legitimate dispute about whether you're entitled to a portion of it, they might freeze the sale until we can fully litigate the case. I felt like I could breathe again for the first time in days. And if that works? If that works, we move to phase 2. We file a lawsuit claiming you're entitled to at least half the property based on your father's clear intentions, your contributions, and the improper influence your mother exercised over him. We'll also look into whether her new boyfriend has any legal exposure, if he's been encouraging her to cut you out while knowing about your father's wishes. That's textbook undue influence. Half the house. Not the whole thing, maybe, but half. It wasn't what Dad had wanted, but it was justice. It was accountability. How long will this take? Months, possibly longer? Your mother will fight back. She'll claim the house is entirely hers, that your father never made you any promises, that you abandoned your claim by moving out. She'll make this ugly. I thought about the cold look in her eyes when she'd shut the door in my face, the way she'd erased me from her life like I never existed. Let her try, I said. I'm not backing down. Jennifer extended her hand. Then let's get to work. I spent the next week gathering evidence. Every text from Dad, every bank statement showing money I'd sent to Mom, photos of me at the house over the years, helping with repairs, painting the fence, planting flowers in the garden. I even tracked down old neighbors who remembered Dad talking about leaving the house to me. Uncle Mike provided a statement too, confirming that Dad had explicitly told him multiple times that I was supposed to inherit the house. When Jennifer filed the motion, my mother lost her mind. She called me for the first time in weeks, screaming into the phone about how ungrateful I was, how I was spitting on my father's grave, how I was trying to steal from her. She said I'd always been jealous, always been selfish, always been a disappointment. I let her rant. And when she finally ran out of steam, I said just one thing. Dad wanted me to have this house. You know it. I know it. And now a judge is going to know it too. Then I hung up. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. 3 weeks to prepare for the fight of my life. 3 weeks to take back what was rightfully mine. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Cold, sterile. The kind of place where families came to tear each other apart with legal precision. My mother sat on the opposite side with her attorney, an older man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd done this 1,000 times. She wouldn't look at me, not once, just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, hands folded in her lap. Richard, her boyfriend, sat in the gallery behind her, smug, comfortable. Like this was all just a minor inconvenience before they could take their $800,000 and ride off into the sunset. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder. Remember, stay calm. Don't react no matter what they say. We have the facts on our side. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and an expression that said she'd heard every lie, every excuse, every sob story 1,000 times before.
This is a hearing on the plaintiff's motion for a temporary restraining order to halt the sale of the property located at 4782 Maple Drive, she began. Ms. Walsh, you may proceed. Jennifer stood, confident and composed. Your Honor, this case is about a daughter's right to her father's legacy. The defendant, Mrs. Catherine Martin, is attempting to sell a family home that her late husband explicitly intended to pass to their daughter, Sarah Martin. We have substantial evidence of the deceased's intentions, the plaintiff's financial contributions to the property, and the defendant's calculated efforts to exclude her daughter from her rightful inheritance. She laid out everything: Dad's texts, the bank transfers, Uncle Mike's statement, the timeline showing how Mom had changed the locks and cut off contact right before listing the house. My mother's attorney tried to dismiss it all. Your Honor, Mrs. Martin is the legal owner of this property. Her name is on the deed. Her late husband's alleged verbal promises are not legally binding. The plaintiff moved out years ago and established her own separate residence. She has no legal claim to this property, and this lawsuit is nothing more than a vindictive attempt to control her mother's life. Vindictive. The word stung, but I kept my face neutral. The judge turned to me. Ms. Martin, I'd like to hear from you directly. What is it you're seeking here? I stood, my legs shaking slightly. Jennifer had prepared me for this, but actually facing the judge was terrifying. Your Honor, I'm not trying to control my mother's life. I'm trying to honor my father's wishes. He built that house with his own hands. He raised me there, and he promised me, over and over, that it would be mine someday. He told me to take care of my mother, and I have. I sent her money when she needed it. I called to check on her. I tried to be there for her. My voice cracked slightly. And she repaid me by shutting me out, by changing the locks, by pretending I don't exist, all so she could sell the one thing my father wanted me to have. I looked at my mother for the first time. She was staring at the table, her face carefully blank. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable. I just want what's fair, what my father intended. If she wants to live somewhere else, that's her choice. But she shouldn't get to erase him, erase us, like we never mattered. The judge was silent for a long moment, studying the documents in front of her. Miss Walsh, you're asking me to stop a legal property owner from selling her own house based on alleged verbal promises and text messages that don't constitute a formal estate plan. That's a high bar. My heart sank. However, the judge continued, and hope flickered back to life. The evidence does suggest that there's a legitimate dispute here. The deceased's texts clearly indicate his intentions. The plaintiff's financial contributions show reasonable reliance on those intentions, and Mrs. Martin's actions, particularly changing the locks and cutting off contact immediately before listing the property, do raise questions about whether she's acting in good faith. She looked directly at my mother. Mrs. Martin, did your husband ever discuss his wishes for this property with you? My mother's attorney started to object, but the judge cut him off. I'm asking Mrs. Martin directly, counsel. Mom shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. He mentioned it sometimes, but we never finalized anything. It was just talk. Just talk, the judge repeated. But you were aware that he wanted your daughter to inherit the house? A long pause. Yes. And yet you made no effort to honor those wishes. In fact, you actively excluded your daughter and moved to sell the property without even informing her. It's my house, Mom said, her voice rising. I have every right. You have a legal right, the judge interrupted.
but legal rights come with moral responsibilities, especially in family matters. And based on what I'm seeing here, there are serious questions about whether you've met those responsibilities. She closed the file. Here's my ruling. I'm granting a temporary restraining order on the sale of the property until this matter can be fully adjudicated. Mrs. Martin, you are prohibited from selling, transferring, or encumbering the property in any way until further notice from this court. We'll schedule a full hearing to determine whether Ms. Martin has an equitable claim to a portion of the property's value. My mother's face went pale. Her attorney immediately started arguing, but the judge wasn't having it. Counsel, your client is not being harmed by waiting a few months. The property isn't going anywhere. But if I allow this sale to proceed and Ms. Martin later prevails, the harm to her would be irreversible. The restraining order stands. The gavel came down. I couldn't believe it. We'd won. Not the whole case, not yet, but we'd stopped her. The house couldn't be sold. Not without me getting my say. Not without justice. As we left the courtroom, I saw my mother's face. For the first time since this nightmare began, she looked scared. Good. She should be. The months that followed were exhausting. Depositions, document requests, endless back and forth between attorneys. My mother fought every step, insisting she owed me nothing, that I was being greedy, that I was destroying our family. But the evidence kept piling up in my favor. Jennifer uncovered emails between Mom and Richard where he explicitly told her to cut Sarah out before she figures out what the house is worth. That was the nail in the coffin, proof that they'd been scheming together, that this wasn't just about her moving on with her life. Uncle Mike found more witnesses, too. Dad's old co-workers who remembered him talking about leaving the house to me. Family friends who'd heard him make those promises at gatherings. Even our old neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd known Dad since he first built the house, provided a statement saying he'd told her countless times that this house belongs to Sarah someday. The full hearing was scheduled for November, but in September my mother's attorney reached out to Jennifer with a settlement offer. They wanted to settle. We met in a conference room, neutral ground. My mother looked older somehow, worn down. Richard wasn't with her this time. I'd heard through Uncle Mike that they'd broken up after the emails came out. Apparently, he wasn't interested in sticking around once there was legal trouble. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Her attorney laid out the offer. Mrs. Martin is willing to acknowledge Sarah's equitable interest in the property. She proposes the following settlement. The house will be sold, and the proceeds will be split 50-50 between mother and daughter. In exchange, Sarah will release all claims against her mother and agree not to pursue any further litigation. 50-50. $400,000. Not the whole house, not Dad's full dream for me, but justice. Recognition that I'd been right all along. Jennifer looked at me. What do you think? I looked at my mother. Really looked at her. She seemed smaller now, deflated. All the fight had gone out of her. Why? I asked her directly. Why did you do this? For a long moment, I didn't think she'd answer. Then, quietly, I was scared. Scared of what? Of being alone, of growing old in that house by myself with nothing but memories. Richard made me feel alive again. He said we could travel, see the world, live the life I never got to live when I was raising you. Her voice cracked. I knew what your father wanted. I knew I was breaking my promise to him, but I convinced myself that I deserved this, that I'd earned it after all those years of putting everyone else first.
So you cut me out. I cut you out because I knew if I saw you, I'd feel guilty. If I talked to you, I'd remember all the promises I made to your father. It was easier to make you the villain in my head. To tell myself you didn't care about me, only about the house. She looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my mother. Not the cold stranger who'd shut the door in my face, but the woman who'd raised me. Flawed, broken, human. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know that's not enough. I know I can't undo what I did. But I am sorry. The room was silent. I thought about Dad. About what he would want me to do. He'd always been about forgiveness, about family, about finding the good in people even when they hurt you. But he'd also taught me to stand up for myself, to fight for what was right. I'll accept the settlement, I said finally. 50-50. But I need you to know something, Mom. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed Dad. You broke the promise you made to him when he was dying. You let some random man convince you to throw away everything he built. Tears were streaming down her face now. I know. And you broke us, our relationship. I don't know if we can ever fix it. I know. Jennifer drew up the papers. We both signed. Within 6 weeks, the house sold for $795,000. After fees and taxes, I received $370,000. It was enough to buy my own place. A small house with a garden where I could plant a tree in Dad's memory. Somewhere I could build new memories while honoring the old ones. Mom took her half and moved to a condo across town. We don't talk much. Maybe someday we will. Maybe someday I'll be ready to forgive her completely. But not yet. 6 months have passed since the settlement. I'm sitting in my new home's garden, watching the sun set behind the oak tree I planted last month. It's small now, barely 3 feet tall, but someday it'll tower over this yard just like the tree Dad planted when I was born. People ask me if I regret fighting with my mother, if I regret dragging her through court, exposing her betrayal, forcing her hand. The answer is no. Not because I'm heartless, not because I don't still love her somewhere deep down, but because what she did was wrong. And wrong things need to be made right. My father worked his entire life to build something for our family. He poured his sweat, his blood, his dreams into that house. And he trusted my mother to honor his wishes when he was gone. She betrayed that trust. If I'd walked away, if I'd let her sell that house without a fight, I wouldn't just be betraying myself, I'd be betraying him. Everything he worked for, everything he believed in. Standing up for yourself isn't cruel. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. And demanding what you're owed isn't greedy. Sometimes the people we love most will hurt us in ways we never imagined. They'll choose their own comfort over your pain. They'll rewrite history to make themselves the victim and you the villain. And when that happens, you have a choice. You can let them. You can swallow your anger, accept the betrayal and tell yourself that keeping the peace is worth the price, or you can fight back, not with violence, not with cruelty, but with truth, with evidence, with the unwavering certainty that you deserve better. I fought back. I took my mother to court. I exposed her lies. And I walked away with half of what my father built, not because I was greedy, but because it was mine. Because he wanted me to have it. That money bought me this house, this garden, this new beginning. But more than that, it bought me something priceless. The knowledge that I stood up for myself when it mattered most. That I honored my father's memory. That I refused to be erased. My mother made her choices. Now she has to live with them. And me? I'm building something new. Something that no one can take away.
Because the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's creating a life so beautiful, so strong, so unshakable that no betrayal can touch it.
That's what my father would have wanted. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.